Well, I wanted to make a video about so-called left libertarianism. This is something that I think I heard about really around the same time I ever even heard about anarcho-capitalism. I was a market anarchist. I didn't believe in a government or a state anyway, uh, but I did believe in free markets and capitalism and all that before I ever heard the term anarcho-capitalism. And probably within a few weeks or even days, I heard the term left libertarian. And it's been something that I haven't felt that strongly about. What's bringing this on is apparently um, in one of his videos, Stefan Molyneux, who I like Stefan Molyneux, but I don't follow him that closely anymore. I will typically not watch his videos unless it's has a particularly thought-provoking title or he's interviewing somebody I really think is interesting, which isn't that all that often, honestly. But apparently he called feminists socialists with panties or whatever. And just to address that real briefly, it's true that feminism or being pro-woman in some vague or even a specific way doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a socialist. The two don't go together necessarily. But historically, within self-identifying feminist circles and prominent feminists and even non-prominent rank-and-file feminists, they are socialists. It is very, very similar to the Green Movement. The Green Movement, this story is, it's like we call them watermelons. They're green on the outside, they're red or pink, aka socialist on the inside. With the feminist movement, I think the most glaring example, and he cited them both, is someone like Margaret Thatcher, or I think Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand, whatever you think about her, was unbelievably successful in what she did. Her novels are among the very best-selling books in history. It's one of those books where it doesn't beat the Bible or even come close. And who knows? Maybe it doesn't beat Harry Potter at this point, but I don't know. When they do surveys of influential books in the United States, Atlas Shrugged is pretty much almost always number 2. There's not really any other book that's as consistently rated as that important as. So she has a career that, unlike most feminist arguments where they look to leaders, they have to, and I'm not saying this to be sexist, but it's going to sound that way, they have to basically exclude men from the competition. So if they talk about female athletes, there are not many athletic venues. There are some where female physiology makes a difference, but they can't compete with men physically. And if you look at like scientists, yes, we can name some brilliant female scientists, but then when we look at male scientists, it's just it's almost makes you not want to be a feminist. But then you look at Ayn Rand, and we don't have to make any kind of, let's compare her among female philosophers or female authors. No, she compares favorably against all comers, and so wouldn't she be the perfect person for feminists to laud, even if they don't agree with everything she says? Because I don't agree with everything. I'm not an objectivist, but they don't. In fact, it's conspicuous in her absence, and so I think Steph's statements, not to be too tangential here, were if not technically correct, utterly defensible. Anyway, on Facebook, kind of a debate developed, not between me, I saw it secondhand, between a left libertarian who was basically defending feminism and whatnot. Now, left libertarianism, as far as I can tell, is fairly broad, amorphous body of thought / people, and as such, it's like libertarianism in that sense. As such, it's kind of hard to really pin it down on anything and say, because any argument I might make about libertarians generally, we can probably find specific and indeed frequent counterexamples. And the same is probably true with left libertarians. But here's my problem with a lot of what I get from that. If I were to say, if I got what I wanted, and we had an ANCAP society, a free market society, and there was no state, and all of our goods and services are provided on voluntary means, one way or the other, and I don't know, we zoom in on a household, and You know, it's a man and a woman and their family, and they sit around the dinner table. And of course, the man works at a, you know, at a job that he's agreed to work at. And, you know, of course, this is ANCAP Libertaria, so I mean, they'd probably be fairly well off because everything would be cheap and high quality, and there'd be no taxes and blah 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 blah. And maybe there are some elements of this that, you know, I don't necessarily like, and that this in the sense that maybe I wouldn't want to live there. Maybe I wouldn't want to be in this household or whatever. Maybe they're really religious in a way that I don't like. Maybe he raises his kids in a way that I wouldn't. Maybe his relationship with his wife is not the kind I would view as ideal. Maybe the remuneration at the work he gets is not what I would be satisfied with. But at the end of the day, I don't see anything to be too worked up about here. I don't see anything to rally against or to have a revolution against. But a lot of left libertarians, and I'm not going to say all of them, their reaction would be something along the lines of, we still have paternalism here, we still have hierarchy here. They might actually still use the term wage slavery, which I've heard them use quite a bit. And they would find an awful lot to be upset about. And while I don't necessarily think you can fault them for maybe being a little upset, like I said, you might not like it, I might not like something, but they're how do I say this? They're revolutionary in a way that I hesitate. I'm worried that they would think that this is something that they need to intercede to destroy, you know, in the way that I might favor the dissolution of the state or a coercive gang of thieves. They look at the patriarch as an oppressor. They look at the employer as an oppressor because he's not, you know, because, I don't know, because there's a hierarchy. They look at hierarchy in general as bad. And this worries me because the way that they're going to get rid of these things, to me, is very risky and would lead to some kind of tyranny. It's very common for reformers to basically be far worse than what they're trying to reform, you know, in violence or whatever. And again, in the few times that I've talked to left libertarians, which is not something I seek to debate or anything, because I think we agree on enough that I don't want to be bogged down in future minutia, if that's not downplaying it too much. A lot of them will say, yeah, they're not going to use coercion or anything that I would consider coercion, but a lot of them are recalcitrant on saying that. They are unwilling to go that far, and one definitely gets the sense that these are the type of people that might consider using force to rectify what they consider to be an abhorrent situation. And again, you might disagree with what's going on, and it would be out of line for me to say you can't disagree and you can't not like it and you can't act. Obviously you can act. You can write a book. You can agitate through persuasion. You can give pamphlets to this guy. You can talk to the... I mean, there's any number of things you can do. I don't mind, like, anti-gay people, really, at all. To the extent that they just try and persuade gay people not to be gay. In fact, I always think that the best thing that they could ever do would be to write a really awesome novel that's, I don't know, there's a lot of something that gay people would really like to read, and then have the story revolve around, you know, some guy who ends up, you know, old and alone and, you know, not sexy anymore, so he's not getting all the young guys to go out with him, and he dies an embittered life. You know, that would be, I think, a really effective way to impact the homosexual community in a way that might drive them into heteroism. Not that I'm saying it's normative that it should be that way. I'm just saying if someone were to do that, I have no problem at all. Now, if they go to the government and they say, well, we want to outlaw gays, that's, you know, that's going too far, and that's something to be totally against. But these left libertarians, and it depends on which ones, and to what degree, I definitely get the sense that their revolution goes way past the state and would require some form of coercion. It's similar to the anarcho-syndicalists who are like, well, we're against states, but then they want these worker councils that can do everything. Now, I don't know if left libertarians don't consistently advocate some kind of institution that would, be akin to a state, but if they're against hierarchy, if they're against paternalism and wage slavery, which again I cannot excuse being against wage slavery in such a rhetorical terms. How exactly are they going to bring this about without some kind of coercive apparatus, whether that be state or otherwise? I don't understand. And I don't understand the emphasis on left. That's the other problem I have with it. But we all know that the dichotomy of the two, left and right, and where that comes from in Bastia, and who, we all know that it's all switched numerous times, and that the two sides don't have coherent philosophies. So being left doesn't have they're not consistent. Neither is the right. But the whole idea of free markets and that people own their bodies or whatever, that does not come from what is contemporarily known as the left at all. I mean, they do favor certain kinds of enfranchisement, but it's all along the lines of the government basically subsidizing this or that group. So the government subsidizes blacks or women, and this is just viewed as being feminist or anti-racist when it's really the state placating a certain segment of the mob through some kind of subsidy. And it's not in any genuine sense a civil libertarian thing or individualistic thing or anything really to be lauded. It's something to be viewed as destructive and I don't know, bad, basically. And so I don't know why they continue to hold. I mean, why, if you're against coercion, why would you hold on to so much socialist rhetoric? I don't understand. I try not to keep, I kind of come across as really right wing despite certain realities. But I avoid nationalist rhetoric. I do not say the Pledge of Allegiance, and I don't put my hand over my heart, and I don't, like, when I watch these debates with Ron Paul, I actually turn the volume off when they do, like, the Star Spangled Banner. I can't even stand to listen to that stuff. And I don't, if I pretended that my right-wing anarcho-capitalism, if I started ginning that up with nationalism, wouldn't you be uncomfortable with that? Wouldn't that seem like, I mean, I know I would if I saw a libertarian doing that. I mean, I'm even wary of constitutional talk. I think you can make an argument there for, principles of law and order and, some kind of idea that there's ethics or whatever that are above the state. So it doesn't bother me too much, but wouldn't that concern you if somebody was, they had all this nationalistic rhetoric, and so these left libertarians, when they talk about all these left-wing socialist issues, they don't transfer very well contextually into a libertarian free market society at all. I mean, they just don't. How you go about dealing with them, and none of them does it ever come across to me that they're thinking, well, we don't like paternalism, we don't like racism. That's another one that they'll talk about, and we're just going to persuade people to be done with that. If that's your goal, I mean, if that's what you're going to do, then there's no big reason to agitate for that at this point. I mean, if you're really against the state, which I think left libertarians are sincere when they say that they are, then talking about what you're going to do post-state in terms of what amount to voluntary arrangements, non-coercive, NAP approved interactions, then I have to wonder if where your priorities really are. And this kind of bleeds into a little bit with kind of the Reason TV, Nick Gillespie, Libertarians. David Gordon, I think, wrote a good article about it. Look, it's about the non-aggression principle and how that applies. What are the ramifications of that? It's not about all of us living a certain way or having a certain vibe or being tolerant or anything like that. None of that stuff, or not discriminating. I mean, that's just not part of the picture. That's a different picture. And if that's part of what you want, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But to pervert libertarianism by associating the two is inappropriate and uncalled for, and it really muddles the water. So I don't know. That's my take on that. It's not a big deal. I kind of hesitant to even make a video about it because left libertarians, they're like the tiny subset of libertarianism, and I don't know. I think it's kind of a, my sense of it is, as people who were left-wing, who were socialist, who were persuaded by the non-aggression principle, were persuaded by the moralistic arguments of libertarians, but they retained, at least in vestigial form, their socialist left-wing proclivities. And that's not always bad if they just want to keep smoking pot, or they favor hemp or whatever. Yeah, it's no big deal. Whatever. They want to be a hippie. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if they still want to like obliterate paternalism or hierarchy, hierarchy is a big one. There's no such thing as non-hierarchy. That has major egalitarian undertones that are just completely antithetical to reality. Now, I'm against totally arbitrary hierarchy. If some just person shows up and says, I'm above you socially and you have to do what I say, like the state does, yeah, I'm against that. But if I go to a job and I say, okay, I'll agree to work so many hours and you'll be my boss or whatever, then that there is hierarchy there, but it's consensual. And if I get married, if a man and a woman get married and they're both Christians, and the woman thinks she's supposed to take the lead from the man and be kind of there for him because that's a pretty common view in Christian doctrine, so what? What you can't really object to that. Now, if she tries to leave later and her husband like locks her in the basement and doesn't let her, that's coercion and that's wrong. But if they just agree to have a hierarchical relationship, that's fine. And if you're in, I don't know, like when I was in Boy Scouts, we had hierarchy, but it was all voluntary. If you didn't like it, you could leave. Or you could form your own Boy Scout organization that didn't have any kind of hierarchy in it. Although there's going to be natural hierarchy whenever you come about it. Whenever you have a group of people, even a group of two, your human social interactions are extremely complex because humans are, even really stupid humans are able to think on the fourth or fifth order, if not more. And but there's hierarchy there, and vowing to obliterate it strikes me as just asking for some kind of democidal war of some type that would never even get what you want in the first place. So I don't know why people would emphasize it so much.